Torn Bonds. Part 1. Love Beneath the Silver Moon. In the kingdom of Eryx, one's destiny was decided at birth. Alphas were born to command. Betas kept the kingdom running. Omegas were expected to obey. Many Omegas accepted that fate. Eryx never did. Although blessed with rare healing pheromones that every noble family coveted, he dreamed of becoming a healer instead of marrying into power. His mother had raised him to believe that a person's worth came from kindness, not from the scent they carried. Against all expectations, Eryx earned a place at the Royal Academy. It was there that he met Kael Ashford. Kael was everything Eryx was not. He was the strongest alpha in the kingdom, heir to the legendary House Ashford, and admired by every noble family. Students stepped aside when he walked past. Professors praised his talent. Even seasoned knights treated him with respect. Yet behind the cold expression was a lonely young man who trusted no one. Their first meeting was anything but graceful. "You should watch where you're going," Kael said after Eryx nearly collided with him while carrying a stack of medical books. "I'm sorry," Eryx laughed. "Books are heavier than they look." Kael simply walked away. Most students would have been terrified. Eryx only thought, "He's not as frightening as everyone says." Days turned into weeks. By chance, or perhaps fate, they continued meeting. Kael often trained until his hands bled. Eryx quietly treated the wounds without asking for anything in return. When Eryx forgot to eat because he spent all day studying medicine, Kael would leave warm meals on his desk before disappearing without a word. Neither realized how much they had begun depending on one another. One evening they sat beneath the Academy's ancient moon tree, watching lanterns drift across the night sky. "You always come here when you're troubled," Eryx observed. Kael looked at the silver moon. "My father believed emotions make an alpha weak." "And what do you believe?" Kael was silent for a long time. "I don't know." Eryx smiled gently. "I think they make us human." For the first time in years, Kael smiled. It was small, almost shy, but to Eryx it was beautiful. By the end of their first year, everyone knew. The strongest alpha had fallen in love with a common-born Omega. Some admired them. Others whispered that the relationship could never last. Kael ignored every rumor. "I don't care what they say," he told Eryx. "I choose you." Tears filled Eryx's eyes. "And I choose you." Under the moon tree, they shared their first kiss. Soon afterward, healers confirmed that they were true mates. Their pheromones blended perfectly. Their bond was exceptionally rare. Even the Academy's headmaster congratulated them. For the first time in his life, Eryx believed happiness could truly last. He was wrong. Far away, inside the royal palace, Crown Prince Lucien listened as his advisor delivered a report. The Omega called Eryx possesses extraordinary healing pheromones. And he has already formed a mate bond with Kael Ashford. Lucien slowly closed the report. "A pity," the advisor frowned. "Your Highness, I intended to make him my royal consort." The room fell silent. Lucien smiled, but there was no warmth in his eyes. "If I cannot have him willingly," his fingers crushed the parchment, "then I will make sure no one else keeps him." A week later, Eryx received an invitation from the palace. Kael immediately frowned. "You don't have to go. It's a royal summons," Eryx replied softly. "Refusing would insult the crown." "I have a bad feeling." Eryx squeezed Kael's hand. "I'll come back." Kael reluctantly nodded. "I'll wait for you." Instead of welcoming Eryx into the palace, royal guards escorted him to an abandoned manor hidden deep within the royal forest. The iron doors opened with a groan. Inside, a young Omega was chained to the floor. His clothes were torn. Bruises covered his arms. Eryx." The voice was barely a whisper. "Noah." Eryx rushed forward. His younger brother struggled to smile before collapsing from exhaustion. "What have you done to him?" A slow clap echoed through the room. Prince Lucien emerged from the shadows, dressed in elegant white robes. He looked every bit the perfect prince. Only his eyes betrayed the darkness beneath. "I've done very little," Lucien said calmly. "So far." A servant presented a silver tray. On it rested 2 crystal bottles. One contained clear medicine. The other held black liquid. "The black vial is a rare poison," Lucien explained. "It attacks the body slowly." He gently lifted Noah's chin. "Your brother receives a small dose every week." Eryx's face turned pale. "You monster!" Lucien ignored the insult. "The clear vial is the antidote." He placed both bottles back onto the tray. "I possess every dose." Eryx's voice trembled. "What do you want?" Lucien smiled. "You. I already have a mate. You have an inconvenience." "I love him." Lucien stepped closer. "I don't care." He walked toward Noah and rested a hand on the frightened Omega's shoulder. Noah flinched. Lucien smiled wider. "Your brother is brave. But everyone breaks eventually." He nodded to one of the guards. Without warning, the guard struck Noah across the back with a heavy rod. Noah cried out before collapsing. "Stop!" Eryx threw himself forward. The guards restrained him immediately. He struggled desperately. "Please, don't hurt him." Lucien crouched until he was eye level with Eryx. "I have one condition. You will leave Kael. You will convince him you never loved him. You will reject your mate bond." Eryx stared in horror. "I can't." "You can." "No." "You will." Lucien's voice remained calm. "If you refuse." He glanced toward Noah. "The poison will slowly destroy his organs. He will beg for death. And you will watch." The room became unbearably silent. Tears streamed down Eryx's face. He had sworn never to abandon Kael. But he had also promised his late mother he would protect Noah. Lucien already knew which promise Eryx would choose. For the next month, Eryx lived a double life. By day, he smiled beside Kael. By night, he secretly visited Noah, who grew weaker with each passing week. The prince sent him cruel reminders. One day it was Noah's blood-stained scarf. Another day it was a broken chain stained with fresh blood. Each letter contained only one sentence. "Disobey me, and he dies." Eryx stopped sleeping. He barely ate. His hands shook so badly during healing lessons that he could no longer stitch wounds properly. Kael noticed. "You've lost weight." "I'm just tired." "You've been crying." "It was the wind." "Eryx." Kael gently held his face. "You don't have to carry everything alone." Those words shattered what remained of Eryx's resolve. He wanted to tell him. He wanted to reveal everything. But the image of Noah lying in chains filled his mind. He forced a smile. "I'll be okay." Kael wasn't convinced. Still, he trusted the person he loved. That trust would soon become the weapon used against him. 3 nights later, another royal letter arrived. "Tomorrow, end your relationship with Kael in front of the entire academy, or your brother dies before sunset." Eryx read the message until the ink blurred beneath his tears. Outside his window, the moon tree swayed gently in the night breeze. For the first time since meeting Kael, he prayed the man he loved would one day forgive him. Part 2. The Broken Bond. The academy grounds were filled with morning sunlight. Students gathered near the moon tree, unaware that today would carve itself into history. Eryx stood at the center of it all. His hands were cold, his breathing uneven, and somewhere deep inside his chest, the mate bond he shared with Kael pulsed faintly, like it already knew what was about to be destroyed. Kael arrived late, as he always did after morning training. The moment he saw Eryx, something felt wrong. not in his expression, but in his stillness. "You asked to see me," Kael said. Eryx didn't look at him immediately. That alone made Kael's instincts sharpen. "Eryx." Slowly, Eryx lifted his gaze. There were no tears. That was what frightened Kael the most, because Eryx always felt deeply. Today he felt empty. "I can't do this anymore," Eryx said quietly. Silence spread through the courtyard. Kael frowned. "Do what?" "This." Eryx gestured faintly between them. "You and me." A ripple of shock passed through the students nearby. Kael stepped closer. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking." Eryx's voice trembled, but he forced it steady. "I reject our bond." The words hit the air like a blade. For a moment, nothing moved. Even the wind seemed to stop. Kael stared at him. Then he laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. "You don't mean that." "I do." "You can't." "I already did." The mate bond flared violently in Kael's chest. Pain shot through him. Not physical injury. Something worse. Rejection. "Eryx." Kael's voice lowered. "Tell me what's going on." "There's nothing going on." "Lies." Every word tasted like poison in Eryx's mouth. Kael reached for him. Eryx stepped back. That single movement shattered something irreversible. Whispers erupted. Did he just reject him? The Ashford heir? Impossible. Kael's hand froze midair. "You're lying." Eryx finally looked at him fully, and Kael saw it. Fear. Not of him, but of something behind him that Kael could not see. "I never loved you," Eryx said. The sentence broke Kael completely. The mate bond snapped. Not like a clean cut, like something tearing through bone and soul. Kael staggered backward. Pain burned through his entire body. But worse than the physical rejection was the truth he refused to believe. "You don't mean it," he repeated hoarsely. Eryx turned away. "I do." Then he walked, step by step, away from him, away from everything they had built. That night, Kael stood alone beneath the moon tree, the place they once promised forever. Snow began to fall. He didn't move, didn't speak, didn't breathe properly. For the first time in his life, Kael Ashford broke. Far away, hidden in the royal palace, Prince Lucien watched a recording crystal replay the scene. Eryx's trembling voice, Kael's collapse, the bond snapping like glass. Lucien smiled. Perfect. Days turned into weeks. Kael stopped smiling, then stopped speaking, then stopped trusting anyone. He buried himself in combat training. If he fought hard enough, maybe the pain would stop. Didn't. Instead, it turned into something else. Something sharper, colder, more dangerous. Within a year, Kael was no longer the Academy's brightest student. He was the Empire's weapon. People began calling him the Crimson Alpha. Eryx, meanwhile, disappeared from the Academy. No one knew where he went. Only rumors remained. Some said he had been taken by the crown. Others said he died from shame. None of them were true. He was alive, but barely. In a locked chamber beneath the royal estate, Eryx knelt beside his brother's weakening body. "Noah." His voice cracked. "I'm still here." Noah smiled faintly. "You look tired." Eryx forced a laugh. "So do you." But the truth was unavoidable. Noah was dying. Slowly, methodically. Lucien never rushed. He simply waited. Every week, another dose. Every week, a reminder. Obey. One evening, Lucien entered the chamber alone. No guards. No ceremony. Just silence. "You did well," he said. Eryx didn't respond. "You broke him completely." Eryx's fists tightened. "Let him go." Lucien tilted his head. "Not yet." He knelt beside Noah. "So fragile." So close to the end. Eryx surged forward, but stopped when Lucien lifted a single vial. Black liquid swirled inside. "One drop," Lucien said calmly. "And he dies tonight." Eryx froze. Lucien smiled softly. "You're learning." That night, Eryx wrote the final message he would send to Kael. Not because he wanted to, but because he had no choice. The letter contained only 5 words. "You were never enough." As he sealed it, tears finally fell freely. Outside, the moon tree swayed under a moon he could no longer face. And somewhere far away, Kael read those words and believed every single one. Part 3. Crimson Revenge. The war began quietly, not with trumpets, not with declarations, but with Kael Ashford stopping an execution. A corrupt noble had knelt in the capital square, awaiting judgment. The crowd expected mercy or punishment from the crown. Instead, Kael arrived. He didn't speak. He drew his sword, and the noble's crimes were answered in a single strike. From that day forward, people stopped calling him a student. They stopped calling him heir. They called him something else. The Crimson Alpha. Years had passed since Eryx disappeared. Years since Kael's world shattered beneath the moon tree. He no longer slept properly. He no longer remembered peace. Only battle. Only orders. Only the hollow space where Eryx used to exist. But grief, when left untreated, becomes something dangerous. It becomes purpose. One night, during a siege on a northern fortress, Kael found something that changed everything. Hidden beneath the commander's quarters was a sealed archive. Inside, documents, reports, letters, and one name repeated again and again. Prince Lucien. Kael read slowly at first, then faster, then with shaking hands. Trade routes manipulated. Omegas kidnapped and sold. Healers imprisoned for political leverage. And one recurring pattern. Eryx Rowan monitored, isolated, controlled. Kael stopped moving. The room felt too small, too loud, too suffocating. He turned the page, and found it. A royal order, signed by Lucien, dated the day Eryx had rejected him. Kael did not remember leaving the fortress. Only that by sunrise, 3 commanders had sworn loyalty to him. Not to the crown, to justice. In the royal palace, Prince Lucien sat calmly while reports arrived. Kael Ashford has taken control of the northern garrison. 2 more provinces have defected. He is rallying forces against the crown. Lucien smiled faintly. So he finally decided to resist. He took a sip of tea. Good. His advisor hesitated. Your Highness, should we be concerned? Lucien placed the cup down gently. No. If anything, he looked out toward the distant horizon. This is the outcome I expected. Kael's army moved like a storm. Fast, precise, merciless, but only toward corruption. He never attacked civilians, never touched innocents, only those tied to Lucien's system. And every territory he liberated told him the same thing. Fear of the crown, disappearances, silenced witnesses, broken Omegas who were never seen again. Each story carved something deeper into Kael's heart. Not anger, not revenge, something colder, clarity. Then came the letter, delivered by an anonymous courier. No seal, no signature, just a single page, and a familiar handwriting. Kael opened it. His breath stopped. Eryx. The letter was short. If you are reading this, I am still alive. Kael's grip tightened. Do not come for me. The prince will kill Noah if you do. His vision blurred. I am the reason you suffered. I am the reason you lost everything. Forget me. The paper trembled in Kael's hands. But Kael had stopped obeying orders long ago. even Eryx's. That night, Kael broke into a royal intelligence vault. What he found there destroyed what remained of his restraint. Records, surveillance notes, medical logs, and one final file labeled Omega Project. Subject, Eryx Rowan. Kael read every line, slowly at first, then all at once. Control through family leverage, emotional manipulation, forced rejection protocol, sustained psychological coercion, and confirmation. Noah Rowan alive as leverage asset. Kael stopped reading. The world around him went silent. Then, something inside him snapped into place. Not his heart, not his bond. Something worse. Resolve. I understand now, Kael whispered, and for the first time in years he smiled. Not warmly, not gently, but like a man who had finally decided what must burn. The war reached the capital within weeks. The gates fell, the outer walls collapsed, and the Crimson Alpha walked into the palace alone. Not because he was reckless, but because no one could stand beside him anymore. Not after what he had learned. In the throne hall, Prince Lucien waited. Still calm, still composed, still smiling. You've come far, Lucien said. Kael stopped a few meters away. I came for everything you took. Lucien tilted his head. You mean Eryx? Kael's expression didn't change. I mean everything. Lucien chuckled softly. You're angry. No, Kael said. I'm done. For the first time, Lucien's smile thinned. The battle was not long. It was not glorious. It was inevitable. Lucien was not weak, but he had always relied on control, on leverage, on fear, and Kael had already broken all three. When it ended, Lucien knelt among shattered marble and broken gold. Not dead, not yet. Kael stood before him, sword lowered, expression empty. Where is Eryx? Lucien coughed lightly. You think you've won. Kael stepped closer. I know I have. Lucien smiled weakly. Then you should prepare yourself for what comes next. A hidden chamber beneath the palace opened, and for the first time in years Eryx saw sunlight. Part 4. A second moon. The chamber doors opened slowly, not with force, not with violence, but with something far more dangerous: silence. Eryx stood there for a moment, unable to move. Sunlight, real sunlight, felt unreal after so many years underground. His legs trembled as he stepped forward, as if afraid the world would vanish if he moved too quickly. And then he saw him, Kael, standing in the broken remains of the palace corridor, sword lowered, cloak torn, eyes darker than anything Eryx remembered. For a heartbeat, neither of them spoke, because words had failed them once before, and neither knew if they were allowed again. Kael moved first, not fast, not dramatic, just one step, then another, like a man afraid the person in front of him might disappear if he rushed. Eryx, he said. That was all. Just his name. But it broke something inside Eryx that had been frozen for years. His breath hitched. Eryx tried to speak. Nothing came out. Kael stopped a short distance away. His hands were shaking. The same hands that had once held swords without fear. Now they trembled like he was 19 again. I thought you were gone, Kael said quietly. Eryx's voice finally returned. I thought you'd hate me. A bitter silence followed. Then Kael laughed once. Sharp, broken, disbelieving. Hate you. He stepped forward and stopped just before touching him. I lived because I didn't. That was all it took. Eryx collapsed forward. Kael caught him instantly. No hesitation. No distance. Just arms that had waited years for this moment. Eryx clutched his shirt like a drowning man. I'm sorry, he choked out. I'm sorry. I'm... Kael held him tighter. Don't. The word wasn't anger. It was command. It was fear. It was relief so overwhelming it had nowhere else to go. Somewhere deeper in the palace, Lucien's influence finally collapsed. The royal guards turned. Nobles fled. Records were exposed. And the empire that had once bowed to him began to reject him piece by piece. But none of that mattered in this moment. Not yet, because Kael finally pulled back slightly and looked at Eryx properly. The scars, the exhaustion, the emptiness that had not been there before. Something in Kael's expression changed. Not rage, not grief, something sharper. Purpose. What did he do to you? Kael asked. Eryx looked away. I survived. Kael's voice dropped. That's not what I asked. Eryx didn't answer, because if he did, he would break again. Footsteps echoed behind them. A guard appeared, dragging another prisoner. Noah. Weak, barely standing. Eryx's eyes widened. Noah! He rushed forward, but Kael caught his arm gently. Careful, Kael said. The restraint was not cold. It was protective. For the first time, Eryx noticed something different in Kael. Not the boy from the academy. Not the broken alpha from the rejection. Something else. A man who had survived too much. Kael moved past him and took Noah from the guard personally. The soldier didn't resist. No one did anymore. Hours later, the palace was silent. Lucien was imprisoned beneath the capital. Alive, but stripped of everything. Power, control, fear, all gone. What remained was a man forced to watch the consequences of his choices. In the ruined royal gardens, Kael finally sat beside Eryx. No throne, no titles, just broken stone and moonlight returning after years of darkness. Eryx looked at him carefully. You became different. Kael nodded. So did you. A pause. Then Kael asked quietly, do you still want to heal people? Eryx blinked. It was such a simple question. It hurt more than anything else. I don't know how anymore, he admitted. Kael looked up at the sky. Then we learn again. Eryx stared at him. You're not angry? Kael turned back. I was. And now, I understand what I was angry at. Silence. Not heavy this time. Just tired. Shared. Days passed. The kingdom stabilized slowly. Lucien's crimes were revealed publicly. Nobles who had once supported him were removed from power. Those who had suffered under him were given voices for the first time. And the law of Omegas being treated as property was dismantled entirely. Noah recovered under royal healing care. For the first time in years, Eryx could sit beside him without fear. I thought I'd never see you again, Noah whispered. Eryx smiled faintly. I promised I'd come back. You kept a lot of promises you shouldn't have had to make. That sentence lingered longer than either of them expected. One evening, Kael found Eryx alone beneath what remained of the moon tree. The palace garden had been rebuilt partially, but the tree still stood, scarred, alive, like them. Kael sat beside him. Do you regret it? Kael asked. Eryx frowned slightly. Regret what? Meeting me? Eryx turned sharply. That's a stupid question. Kael exhaled softly. I needed to hear your answer anyway. Eryx looked down. If I hadn't met you, he paused, I might have been safe. Kael didn't respond. But I also would have never known what it felt like to be loved like that. Eryx continued quietly. Silence stretched. Then Eryx added, and I think I would have regretted that more. Kael closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, something softer remained. Then we're even, he said. Eryx looked at him. How? Kael's voice lowered. Because I would have regretted a world where I never met you. The second spring came quietly. No war, no manipulation, no chains, just rebuilding and healing. One evening, under a sky finally free of fear, Kael took something from his pocket. A simple silver ring. Not royal, not ceremonial, just real. Eryx looked at it. You still keep things like that? Kael nodded once. I kept everything I could. Eryx exhaled softly. That sounds like you. Kael hesitated. This time, he said, no one decides for us. Eryx reached out slowly and took his hand. I already decided a long time ago, he replied. Kael looked at him. For me. Eryx shook his head slightly. For us. Above them, the moon rose again. Not cold this time. Not distant. But whole. And for the first time in years, it did not feel like something watching them suffer. It felt like something witnessing them survive. Together. Thank you for listening to Hearty Tale. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more heartfelt tales. Until next time, take care of your heart.